The Blue Jackets lost, but they looked pretty good doing it. We're going to take a look at what went right for the Blue Jackets and what went wrong for the Blue Jackets on today's Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get things started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every single day, and thank you for being patient while I dealt with some Wi-Fi issues. But you can find Locked On Blue Jackets wherever you get your podcast. You can find us on YouTube, and I also have to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. All you have to do is visit FanDuel.com to get started. Doing something a little bit different today. I have a pretty busy weekend because I'm getting married this weekend. So my friend over at Locked On Wild, the wonderful Seth Toupal, really helped me out here. He is credentialed for the Minnesota Wild. He was at the game last night, and he has been kind enough to record a little bit of post-game content for us. So instead of my opinions, you're going to get Seth's opinions, and then when I am back in action on Monday, you will get some more thoughts from me about last night's game and also about tomorrow's game against the Avalanche. So I'm just going to get right into Seth's takeaways from last night's game. So enjoy.
Welcome in once again, 3-2 win for the Minnesota Wild here tonight as they take care of business against the Columbus Blue Jackets. But it wasn't easy, and it very clearly was the first game of the season for the Minnesota Wild. More on that in a bit, but we're going to start with what I liked on the Minnesota Wild side. We'll talk about what I liked on the Columbus Blue Jackets side, and we will take a look at some of the keys to this one here tonight. We will, of course, get to all of your comments as well here in our live postcast. But let's start with what we liked from the Minnesota Wild side of things. And we got to start with the new friend of the show, Matt Boldy, looking absolutely unbelievable tonight. Had a goal. He probably should have had two, as he nearly threaded the needle between Elvis Merzlikins' head and the post for what would have been his second goal of the night. But that second line was the catalyst for the Minnesota Wild in this one tonight, as Joel Eriksson, Marcus Johansson, and Matt Boldy were driving play, were pushing the offense all night tonight. And I'm gonna start right off the bat. I tweeted this during the game. You may have seen it. Look, I have been as hard as anybody on Marcus Johansson over the last calendar year, and I am very willing to eat full plates of crow if Marcus Johansson plays like he did tonight for a majority of the season. Not only was Johansson active along the boards, he had two instances in which he took the puck and he flew directly at the goalie and tried to get a shot on net. Had a wraparound attempt as he just tore right at Elvis Merzlikins on the first one. And he also tore at the net later in the game and nearly had a goal there. Set up Joel Eriksson for the second goal of the game for the Minnesota Wild. And again, Trav brings up a very good point. This is game one of the season, and it's very different doing this against Columbus than it is doing this against Dallas. But that second line was impressive tonight, and Matt Boldy talked about the confidence that he has as a player and the opportunities that he wants to take advantage of throughout the course of this season, and he got things started on a strong note here in this one tonight. Let's talk about that top line. Kirill Kaprizov, Matt Zuccarello, and Marco Rossi. I'm not going to call it a bust after one game, certainly. Felt like they were just a little off tonight. There were a lot of attempts to try to stretch the ice, passes that were just a little bit too far away. In one case, Matt Zuccarello trying to spring Rossi for an attempt at the net, and the pass was just a little too far out of his reach. So I'm going to be really interested to see if they keep attacking like they did, that some of those passes are going to get ironed up, and I think that line is going to be there after they get a few games under their belt. The thing that I think was really impressive here tonight too was the play of Philip Gustafsson. He looked really good all night. He looked decisive. I talked about this with Isha in between the first period and the second period. I thought he looked decisive and was making decisions out there as opposed to really reacting to what he saw in the net. Nearly Columbus probably should have had another goal on the board if not for that goaltender interference call. But I thought that was some really good play by Philip Gustafsson here tonight. The other thing too, Denny points this out, and I agree fully. It was weird that it seemed like the even numbered lines 2 and 4, were the ones really pushing the play here tonight. The fourth line combination of Freddie Gaudreau, Murat Huznadinov, and Jakub Lauko, I thought did some really good things. They played hard and they played with speed. That was the big difference between these two teams tonight. And I think that's why a lot of people are pointing out the third line as not playing particularly well tonight, was because of all the speed that Columbus brings to the table. Those guys are going to be more important against the slower teams in the league, which there are fewer and fewer. And so I think there are going to be nights like this. Late in the game, there was some play by that Foligno line that led to a couple of good opportunities, and so I'm not writing them off yet, but it did look a little off kilter in this one tonight. Penalty kill. Oh, the penalty kill was, again, just a little bit of an adventure. Only technically credited with one power play goal, but I think the Kent Johnson goal must have just happened after that penalty expired. And there were some weird penalties in this game tonight. There was a delay of game. The Wild got called for too many men on the ice at one point as well. So, early in the season, you'd like to see that stuff ironed out before we get very far into the season. And I think this was a good example too. We talked about this after the final preseason game against Chicago. Don't look too far into the results of the preseason, because they happened mostly against Chicago, and they happened against a Winnipeg team that had really no regulars out on the ice. But hey, power play scored tonight. They did a good job of working the puck around on that goal scored by Matt Zuccarello. A lot of opportunities, I think, that could have been there on that power play. But I think what I'm going to try to do more of this year is call it out when there aren't goals scored. If the Wild move the puck around a bunch and end up scoring a goal, so be it. I think the thing that we all just want to see with that power play is that they work it around and that they get shots on net. So as long as there are shots going on the net, that's when things tend to work out better. We are going to get on to some of the things that I liked from the Columbus Blue Jackets here tonight, because they were flying around with some speed. They've got some nice players on that roster. And so we will take a look at all of that. Again, a little different format here for our postcast tonight, because I'm going to be helping Locked On Blue Jackets out by structuring this more like an episode, at least to start. So going to structure this with a little bit more segments, and then we will, of course, get into your comments as well as we continue. But Wild win tonight by a score of 3-2. We'll talk a little bit about what went well for the Columbus Blue Jackets in this one as we continue tonight's Locked On Wild postcast after this. Today's episode of Locked On Wild and Locked On Blue Jackets is brought to you by Indeed. We are driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Welcome back to tonight's Locked On Wild postcast. The Minnesota Wild pick up a 3-2 win over the Columbus Blue Jackets. Taking a look at a few things that we liked for the Columbus Blue Jackets in this one tonight. Obviously, first game on the ice with everything that happened over the summer, losing Johnny Gaudreau. There was a tribute before the game here tonight. And this Blue Jackets team played with a lot of speed. I got to talk about Kent Johnson because that dude can fly. And he scored tonight in this one. And he looks like a building block piece for the Blue Jackets as they continue to maneuver through. You know, a lot of these players on this roster are on the older side, or on the younger side, excuse me. And they've got, you know, obviously Adam Fantilli. They've got Cole Sillinger. We mentioned Kent Johnson. They've got some nice young pieces on this roster, and they played hard all night tonight. I thought the Wild did a good job of really controlling the pace of that final 5 minutes of the first period. Most of the first was just kind of feeling it out, just to figure out kind of where both teams were at this point. Columbus mostly handled the second. They did a really good job of controlling the action, continuing to push at Philip Gustafsson, scored their goal, and they got one back in the third as well. So, look, that's a young Columbus team, but they played hard here tonight. They I think wanted to kind of channel some of that emotion from the tribute ceremony, and so they definitely funneled that into their play here tonight. You know, the big thing for the Blue Jackets is going to be trying to figure out that goaltending position. Elvis Merzlikins has been very up and down throughout the course of his career, and certainly not his fault on a few of those goals for the Minnesota Wild in this one tonight. But you know, that's going to be another point on the roster that I think Columbus looks to upgrade as they move through their process, because you know, I don't know if Merzlikins is what you would call a building block piece to build around this roster as they go. So Columbus, ultimately, they're a team that I think is expected to be in contention for a lottery spot this year, but I would call it progress. If I'm observing the Columbus Blue Jackets, I would call it progress if they just give an effort like they had in this one tonight. Like if they play hard, if they hustle. The speed was pretty apparent from the Blue Jackets throughout the night tonight. The speed is there. The key is going to be, can you get consistent goaltending or consistent scoring up and down this lineup? And so for the Blue Jackets tonight, they certainly had some opportunities, just couldn't get enough past Philip Gustafsson to factor in the win here this evening, which leads to the Minnesota Wild starting the season like they did last year with a 1-0 record heading into their second game of the season against the against the Seattle Kraken. Let's finish the first half of the postcast here tonight by taking a look at some of the things that the Minnesota Wild are going to need to, tighten up a little bit. Some things that they're going to need to just keep in mind to try to get better, even production throughout the course of the lineup. And we'll also take a look at a few things one game into the season. Are we in need of, the panic button already one game into the season? Spoiler alert, probably not, but we'll finish this first half, and then, of course, we'll get to all of your questions and comments as we continue on here tonight. We're not cutting it short at a half hour. Just gonna kind of do a part one and part two. So we'll continue the postcast here tonight. Minnesota Wild pick up a 3-2 win over Columbus. More postcast thoughts as we continue after this. Tonight's Locked on Wild postcast is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed and win or lose when you place your first $5 bet. So take advantage of this great deal today. Head to FanDuel.com. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Minnesota Wild again pick up a 3-2 win over the Columbus Blue Jackets as they improve to 1-0 on the season. Wild scored once in the first, once in the second, once in the third to take care of this one tonight. But it was not as though there aren't things that can certainly be ironed out as this season progresses. As has been pointed out, Denny mentioned it, and I think Dougie mentioned it as well in the comments. First line just a little bit off. Just some passes that were just a hair too out of reach. Marco Rossi just continued what has been a trend for him, that he just continues to just battle out there, and just Zuccarello trying to set him up in front of the net was a little out of reach. There was one instance on the near side of the net over on the Wild side of the on the Blue Jacket side of the ice, where Kirill was trying to get it to Rossi right up by the net, but the pass was broken up in front, and it ended up leading to a turnover for the Wild. And so, some of that is hopefully going to be correctable, but let's keep this in mind too. This is why we saw John Hines utilize a few different combinations with different centers. We saw Joel Eriksson Ek get some time with Kirill Kaprizov and Matt Zuccarello. We saw Ryan Hartman get some time with Kirill Kaprizov and Matt Zuccarello. So there are, different combinations that they can go to if they feel the need to do that. And I'm just going to put this out there. It wouldn't surprise me if we continue to see, the even numbered lines 2 and 4, kind of handle the business. It wouldn't surprise me to see a center swap there, just to see if that does something for the first and the third lines. Just to see, just to throw a wrinkle in there and see if that is what gets it done to get that top line on track. Because when you have the Boldy line doing their thing, you can afford to have one line really carry the load against a team lower in the standings like the Blue Jackets. That's not going to fly against Dallas. And so it is something to keep an eye on. I don't think it is going to be I don't think it's something that you need to really look at that at this point. We'll see how it goes against Seattle. Seattle is not a team that has as much speed as the Blue Jackets do. And so it could certainly be something that looks better against the Kraken than it did against the Blue Jackets here tonight. Just got to point out again, Blue Jackets have a lot of speed. They got a lot of young players on that roster, and this happened to the Wild last year against Columbus, where it seemed like the Blue Jackets were just skating circles around them. Now it wasn't as lopsided tonight, but that game last year, the Blue Jackets had, I think, 72 shot attempts in regulation. And so, the big thing that it comes down to is getting those lines to crash downhill and to get to the net. That's why it worked so well with Boldy, Johansson, and Eriksson Ek tonight, is because the goals that they scored were because they were pushing downhill and trying to go directly to the net. They were working on the cycle, and Boldy was able to wedge one in on a nice screen by Joel Eriksson Ek. Second goal, pushing downhill for Marcus Johansson and Joel Eriksson Ek. So push towards the net, good things will happen. And that's really all you can look for at this point in the season. Just looks like John Hines is speaking right now, so I'm going to go to the heat map for tonight's game quickly before we get some of John Hines' thoughts in this game as well. Again, that's going to be a new wrinkle that we add to our postcasts this year, is getting those coaches' comments as soon as they're posted, because you get the snippets on TV. We're going to try to get you the whole thing here this season. But let's go to the heat map for this one here tonight. So here is the and I'm going to get the heck out of the way for this and get all this stuff off screen. So here's the heat map for tonight's game. And if you notice, the Minnesota Wild's attempts, which are on the right, I see a lot from between the face-off circles and a lot in close. That you've got a goal just inside the right face-off circle. You've also got a goal at the back of the face-off circle where Boldy scored. If you look at Columbus's, they've got a fair amount of shots up in here close, but look at how much of this action is happening beyond the face-off circle from the perimeter. Like that is something that if you're Columbus, you're going to look at this and say, well, yeah, we definitely need to be attacking the net more, because if we're taking a bulk of our shots from these perimeter parts of the zone, your odds of scoring are very limited in those instances. So, it's early on in the season, but I like the fact that a lot of the attack for the Minnesota Wild happened on the right between the face-off circles and in front of the net. So I liked a lot of that. But again, this is Columbus. If you play like this against a team in front of you in the standings, you're probably going to be on the other end of it. But it was good enough for tonight. There's plenty to work on and plenty to iron out as this season unfolds. Let's at this point just go to some of the notable performances on the Minnesota Wild side of things. So Matt Boldy tonight, he had a goal, 2 assists, 3 shots on goal. He had a block, played 18 minutes, 43 seconds, and a 3-point night for Matt Boldy in his debut is exactly what you like to see. Joel Eriksson Ek tonight, he had a goal, 3 shots, he had a block, he had 4 hits, played 19:49 on the ice, 11 faceoff wins, 9 faceoff losses. Marcus Johansson, 2 assists. He had a shot on goal, played 14:03 tonight. And again, if he plays like he did tonight using that speed, that's going to keep that second line humming as long as he continues to be an impact participant on that second line. He'll hold that spot down, but if he doesn't, we all know who is on the team right now and is looking for a spot to be able to step in and help. Liam Ogren. And so as long as Johansson is participating and is helping contribute to goals, he was responsible for 2 tonight, or helped the Minnesota Wild score 2 goals. So as long as he's doing that, he's going to be a part of that combination. But I hope and trust that some of these leashes are a little on the short side, because we know I don't have to rehash it 90 bajillion times. We all know what's going on. All right, I am.
And that's about all that we've got for you today. I say we. That's all Seth's got for you today. I will be back on Monday. We'll be talking about last night's game a little bit. We'll probably talk for the most part about the game against the Avalanche, which is tomorrow night. And we will start taking a look at the Blue Jackets home opener on Tuesday night as well. So that's all coming up in the next couple episodes. Thank you once again for listening, for making us your first listen of the day. You can find me on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JAKOBFORSTER. You can find the show at LO_Blue Jackets. If you have comments, questions, criticisms, you can email me at locked.bluejackets@gmail.com. Thank you once again for listening. And until Monday, make sure you stay locked on.